It's becoming increasingly more obvious that Star Wars Outlaws is a bad game. It seems like a lot of YouTubers that had the chance to play this game 4 hours in California are coming back with more suspicious statements where they're trying not to say it outrightly, but they're implying that this may be the biggest bomb of the summer. I think that might be the case from what we're seeing from the trailers, from the overall gameplay footage. We're seeing terrible gameplay, we're seeing terrible graphics, and we're seeing an empty world. And I think that's what we hear from a lot of people that were available to play this game. We see terrible AI mechanics, we see everything that makes a good game absent from this game. So it is easy to say this is probably a bad game. And I think for Ubisoft, that's already in troubled waters with Assassin's Creed Shadows, it's going to put them deeper into debt. And I think this is the biggest thing that we can take from Star Wars Outlaws. This may be the beginning of the decline of Ubisoft itself in general. A stock floundering and flailing, falling down to under $4 a share after a long time holding higher standards. And I think this is the situation that we expect from Ubisoft itself as it dramatically declines in quality in its overall production, as it dedicates itself to pushing these abstract political progressive agendas in its own video games and hiring people that don't know how to make video games at all. And I think that is the core thing with Ubisoft itself, because it's a company itself mired in controversies when it comes to its overall releases and has terrible developers that don't know how to make a quality game. And I think Star Wars Outlaws is the quintessential example of that. It's the amalgamation of all the terrible things that have made Ubisoft one of the worst companies for gamers in this past decade, and now it's coming to a culmination of a game that it represents everything bad within the video gaming industry. And I think that's the result of what we're seeing within Star Wars Outlaws. All the terrible things we would see from consultancy firms like Sweet Baby Inc. when it comes to representation, when it comes to narrative design that's mostly focused on gender and racial issues. This is supposed to be an alien universe, but we can see these things present in the way they designed the character, where they stripped any sense of femininity or personality from the character, because that seems to be a default thing to do with any female lead. And I think that's the main thing people are seeing with this game. They see all the faults that we've seen in all entertainment properties brought into a singular game, all Star Wars properties really. When you see the Star Wars sequel trilogy, when you look at the Star Wars Disney TV show properties, when it goes to Ahsoka, to Acolyte, we see all the elements that we hate about those properties in this game automatically, and it's pushing the gamer base away. And I think that's the thing that we see with the character design itself, where we have a supermodel doing the overall visuals for the character, and we get something that looks non-gender oriented being the overall final completed model of the character. And I think this is the thing that people are just tired of seeing within the gaming industry, where there's this bland, uninspired look that everyone demands to be present in video games, and it just takes over the game itself with a similar narrative design that is bland, uninspired, and unoriginal. I think Star Wars Outlaws is bringing all those elements back again, and people are not accepting it anymore. I think people had a taste of that in some of the older Assassin's Creed games that came out, like Assassin's Creed Valhalla and Odyssey. Even though I enjoyed some of those games to a certain extent, you can tell that was the makeup of the developers that were working on the game, that they weren't really inspired to make something wholly unique and original, but more imitating what happened in the past and inserting their own personal political agenda within the games that they want to see in the future. And I think this game is in part a new game that is the quintessential game that these developers want to see more of in the industry, where it's just lacking any qualitative design or look or anything inspiring. It has the bland outlook that these developers want to see in their game. It has the character personalities that they want to see in the game. And I think this is the result of bringing in all those developers that don't have the skills to produce something that is attractive to the player base that wants to actually play these type of games. And I think when we see some of the gameplay, we see some of the broken mechanics, the overall stiff faces and acting, and just what we can compare to narrative design and compare to what we like about Star Wars, we see none of it. And I think that is what we're getting from a lot of people that are watching some of the info, where this game is just stiff. It's not actually playable, and it just doesn't look like a game that was inspired or worked hard on at all. It seems like they brought in people that don't know how to make games, and the games that they're producing just don't look fun, and they look broken and empty. And that is what you don't want in a wide open world game. From the images I've seen, it just looks like an empty game that doesn't feel fun to actually ride and travel through. If you have a big empty world that is not fun to travel through, you don't have characters with personalities that are interesting, the design is ugly, why should I play this game? And when most gamers play games, they play games to have fun. And if your game's not fun, if your game is ugly, if your game has a terrible story, why am I playing your game? And I think this sets up Star Wars Outlaws to be one of the biggest bombs in the industry, essentially. They're making a game that is just not made for the game players. It's made to stick to IP protocols, whatever Star Wars wants to see in their game. Obviously, Lucasfilm is a terrible run organization in of itself. And you bring Ubisoft, who gave birth to a lot of the consultancy agencies we see ruining the gaming industry. Kim Belair, CEO of Sweet Baby Inc., formerly worked at Ubisoft as one of the developers, and then went on to work on many games within the industry as Sweet Baby Inc., Alan Wake 2, Marvel Spider-Man, God of War. This is a person that has inspired. So basically you can say Ubisoft is ground zero for this political progressive activism that is happening in the video gaming industry. And I think we're seeing the end result of that activism in two big bombs that are about to come out within the gaming industry. And I think after Ubisoft sets out and releases this game, disregarding the accusations of terrible graphics and bugs within the game, this is a game that will sink a company that is already floating below its stock price around $3 a share, when it used to be in the mid-20s. So this is a game company that is near a death march that may go bankrupt after the release of two big bomb of failures with Star Wars Outlaws and of course Assassin's Creed Shadows. And I think this is what we're seeing with the studio right now. We're actively seeing the demise of Ubisoft, and I think it is a startling thing to see. They've been producing big games, big titles for multiple years, but now they're just mired in this progressive ideology that has destroyed the essence of the company. And I'm talking about not just the quality of the games. They're hiring people that don't know how to make games, that hate games now. Usually in the past, you usually have the executives ruining the games while you had developers that still love the games trying to do their best. Now the people they hire hate the games that they're producing, and they hate the game players that want to play their games. And it just doesn't make a good mix of actually making quality content that still is attractive to the game players. I think in the past, when we used to play games and we know we're getting a game that's influenced by executives from corporations, we still had little bits and pieces where the developers were really trying to make a game for the game players. Even though the game was terrible, it was like, okay, this has some effort into it. I don't think that's the case with Star Wars Outlaws. I think it was made through hate and anger at the fan base that won't accept their ideology. You can feel that hate and anger when you play some of these games nowadays, and it's just churning off a wide fan base that are just tired of playing games from people that actually hate them. And I think this is the result of this theory and overall influence that we see within the video gaming industry, where you want to change the game players because they're fundamentally wrong and they need to change their philosophy because it harms and disenfranchises genders and races and minority groups, when in fact, in actuality, these are just gamers trying to play games, and it's nothing more than that. But this has become a philosophy, a political battleground, a culture war, and I think video games are dying and suffering over these wars, and it's unfortunate that's the case. Of course, there's real wars out there. There's starving children in Africa, as Red Letter Media says, but still, these are our games. These are the things we're passionate about, and it's sad to see them wilt and die under the thumb of some moral high ground that another authority that doesn't care about your hobby come in and demand you care about their political motivations rather than just having passion for the games that they're making. I think Star Wars Outlaws is the ultimate outcome of this pandering that we're seeing in the Western games development space, and it's sorry and sad that a lot of people will lose their jobs, specifically with Ubisoft, after these two games come out this year. This is going to be a bloodbath, but it's well deserved after failing the fan base for so long and after hating your fan base. And it's a sad thing to see, but hopefully this changes the video game industry But looking at some of the people that got an early playthrough of this game, it's funny seeing them try to dance around the issue of how the game is terrible, because people are just saying, yeah, the spaces wasn't as engaging, but the overall, I like the lock picking, or I like this part, I liked how the grass looked. That's how they're describing the game. They're just looking at random parts that they do like. These reviewers on YouTube, they're just looking at some of the parts that do like, and they're avoiding everything that people actually want about the game. They don't talk about the character design, they don't talk about the gameplay, they don't talk about anything that's fun about the game. They just talk about, oh, I like the lock picking, oh, I like the grass, how it look, oh, the ship looks cool. Okay, does it play well? You like flying the ship? No, it just looks cool. And this is the commentary you're getting. It just shows, okay, Star Wars Outlaws, Ubisoft, Lucasfilm, they're trying to get people to at least give a good image to this game before it's released, and I don't think it's working, at least for the people that are trying to play video games. So you tell me what you think about this. You think Star Wars Outlaws is about to be one of the worst games of the year? I think it's a high possibility, but you leave a comment, tell me what you think. Like, comment, share, subscribe. This is Wagner Knows Why. Catch you next time.